Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's January 27th, and I'm out here taking care of some fruit trees. Before I start, I'm going to say if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button so you'll be notified, and give this thing a big thumbs up and share it. It helps my channel. Now let's get into this one. I'm not a real big fan of taking care of my fruit trees, and a lot of times it tails off on you. This video here is going to talk about some problems with fruit trees, some pruning, some winter maintenance, stuff like that. Now, it's the end of January, but I'm out here, I'm fertilizing these. I am actually putting some compost around them to help. That'll actually nourish the root system with as this compost decomposes, and it'll actually take and keep these roots warm and cool depending on the weather. Now this tree here, this is a Granny Smith. It's been really bad taken care of. In fact, it had a pretty good size top on this side, but you can see it's actually the wood is dead right here, and it's because they come around here one day and whacked this sucker with the lawnmower and damaged it, and this is what we ended up with. So I took the time to cut it off. Now this tree is not in the best of place. It hasn't grown real well. Part of it is because it's not in the best of place, because it has this big tree right here beside it. Now, some might say, well, cut that tree down and get rid of that. Well, you know, this tree here is actually a fruit tree too. It's a mulberry tree. And this tree, you might kind of get an idea. I've got a pretty good sized hand. This tree at the base is getting pretty close to 18 inches across here. And whenever I first acknowledged that it was here, this was all wooded, and it was about 2 inches in diameter if it was that big. So, and that was back in 05. Now, you know, 17 years later, maybe 16, it's grown into a nice big tree. Now, we don't catch too many of the mulberries off this. I do eat a few of them, but like I say, I'm not going to cut it down. Now, that could be part of the problem, that it shades it a little bit, you know, especially in the early spring before the sun gets all the way to its summer solstice. It gets a lot of shade from that tree. This over here, this is a plum tree. Now, it has kind of stepped up its growth in this past year, because actually last year I think I actually fertilized it first time since it's been in the ground. I did come around, I'd water them every year, but I never fertilized them. Now I have deep sand here. It looks like iron ore out here, but this is where I brought iron ore in to make a drive area. So this is deep sand, so the nutrients leach out. It doesn't have a lot of those minerals like clay soil would have. So it has to have nutrients, so you have to take control of it. Now when you prune this, and this could use a little more pruning, a lot of times I'll take off these little bitty limbs like this, and I'll probably come back over here and do that. And might even take off that one. I don't know, I might leave it there. But I'm pruning this down kind of low. Now you can let your trees get up big, but when they get when you let them get the main part real big, when they get loaded up with fruit, they tend to sag over and break limbs, and we'd rather have it small. So this one here, the highest point is roughly about 6.5 foot. Most of it's just a little over 6. And this one here is the same way. It's same variety, I believe, and like I say, it's been pruned down so it's more manageable, so the fruit won't break the limbs. Now this one here wasn't taken care of. I actually had an ant pile, fire ants built up around it, and when I was up here a few weeks ago, and I took care of my fig trees that are over here, and you can see the different ones. I put some diatomaceous earth on it, and that went ahead and took care of the ants. And then I took and cleaned around these because we have Bahia grass, and Bahia grass tends to put out a real strong root. In fact, it builds up as it goes. Let's see if we can find a better example of its root. But as it goes, it keeps climbing and climbing and climbing, and it'll kind of mound up around the edge of these. You can see, like on this one, where it was all the way up here. Now the graft point is here. Normally you wouldn't want to get above that. People worry about some kind of infection or something getting into it. But as far as, because a lot of times they don't heal completely. But anyway, they took care of it. Now this tree here is another example of poor not taking care of it. These trees are about 5 years old. So when you see this and you have a tree that its stem is barely an inch in diameter and it's 5 years old, and I'm guessing persimmons kind of grow slow, but when you see that, you know it's not getting the required nutrients. In fact, it would never leaf out for about 2 years, so I cut the top off, and then it started putting some small limbs, but it really does need more fertilizer. Now I took a few cuttings. They were small, and I'm going to try to propagate it and see if I can't get another one. I don't know if it's related to the rootstock, if it's related to not being fertilized, or what. Now this over here, and I was going to go ahead and cut these suckers that have come off of the rootstock, but I said no, I'll leave them because I probably want some more rootstock propagated, so I'll let them go ahead. But I really chopped the top off of this one. As you can see, it's laying over here. I chopped the whole top off. And what this is the whole top seemed to have borers in it. Now there may be a few down here in the, you can see some sap right there. So there are still some borers, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and spray these. Now I haven't used dormant oil on the trees. It's best to spray dormant oil on the tree. Now this one does have a little bit of a problem too with some borers in the sap. I think there was some here, and I knocked sap off. I cut most of the limbs off. But the thing is, and you can see some, well, I don't know, that might have been a ladybug or something, but there's little places where there's damage from these borers. And if you use dormant oil, now you can use some organic methods like neem oil, and use a dishwashing soap that's plant-based, and take and coat these, because they need to be coated to smother those bugs that bore into your fruit tree, so that they don't do all the damage like they did to that one. Now this one is probably more or less not going to be a great tree. I'm going to see if it wants to come back and go. If not, I'll just use it, like I say, for my rootstock. Now let's go around and look at the other side. Over here with the apple trees, which we've cut them about the same. A lot of this was cut during the summertime, and a lot of pruning on apple trees is it's recommended, and everyone says prune in the winter, but a lot of pruning is recommended to do in the summertime. Cut off half of your new growth, and for one thing, I need it kind of heavy so that it'll produce, but some say that it might cut down on your production whenever you do that. My thing is to get these trees to going, because these trees are they might be 5 years, 6 years old, and they're really not doing that well. But these trees here, this one had a bunch of suckers that were coming up around it. I cut the suckers off and propagating them so I can get some rootstock, because they come off of the root. But whenever I was cleaning around it, I realized these suckers weren't actually off of the side of the tree below the graft. They were actually coming off the root stock itself, and I'll show you those. And these are what came out of there. I actually had to pot one up in a pretty good sized pot because it had a lot of roots. Now, I didn't take the time to dig these up, I just pulled them up. But they really had some nice roots. They're not the prettiest trees or stock that's there. I think it's been cut off a few times. But anyway, what I'm going to do is, I have these, they have roots already. I'm going to go ahead and grow these. In fact, I'll let them grow up a little bit. Hopefully they'll shoot out a nice shoot, and then I'll just graft on one of my other tree varieties to them. But this way I've got rooted rootstock right now. As soon as it starts coming out and everything starts budding, hopefully I can get some type of variety grafted to these. Now, pear trees, they are going to put limbs out all over. And it doesn't matter if you prune them in the winter, if you prune them in the summer, they're going to put all these little growths out. Now, I'll come in here and I'll try to clean up a few that I think might create a problem to where they're rubbing and growing in the center. You want to try to make it grow outwards. But as far as I haven't seen a pretty pear tree unless it's one that's ornamental. So and it's only nice because all the beautiful blooms and the leaves on it. But this one has been doing good. It's pretty much the age, I think, of these apples over here, except it's quite a bit bigger. But like I say, the whole thing about these, and I did have a couple more apples that were set out here, but part of the problem here is whenever you have big trees that are around and come in with where your apples, I'm thinking the light might be a big factor on the growth of these. It's hard to say because these that are over here have done better, even though they've been put out the same time as this one here and this one here, but these have definitely not been taken care of. So same thing over here. Now, I'll probably clean this up a little bit, but you can see a lot of this growth down here. It's had so many suckers coming off. Now I need to see if they're above the graft or below the graft. This right here, this part of the tree is dead. It's been injured real bad here. So what's going to happen is this tree is actually going to have to be cut off below this in order to save it. There's no way that it's going to save here. It is just not that great a tree, but it is alive. So we'll see what happens this coming year. This particular tree right here, now this is a white crab apple. I did have a red crab apple, but I'm hoping that the white crab apple will actually give me some small crab apples, because they do make a good jelly. But the red one, it's just ornamental, so it's not going to do anything. But the red one died. Something got to it, some kind of disease. Maybe it was, I don't think it was gophers because I didn't see anything around it. But anyway, this one is only a couple years old, so and it was a little bitty stick when it started, about the size, a little bit bigger than a pencil. So it's doing great for its second year. The fig trees, like I say, we've done these a week ago now. These could use just a little bit more pruning. Now this is growth. It froze back last February, so this was growth by the end of the year. I've taken a cutting off down there. These should be actually cut off because they're not going to serve any purpose, these couple. I don't try to bring it back as a single unit that's bad. In our area, every so many years we get a freeze and it kills them back. And this, on a lot of the varieties, and this is one. This is the same variety, and it should do good this next year. This is a different variety. Like I say, I didn't put it to a single stem either. A lot of people do. They want these things to grow straight up. I just want them to root in, and I want fruit off them. I'll let this one go ahead and grow, and then I'll kind of manage it however I want, taking cuttings and such. But one thing I wanted to mention, and I mentioned I think in earlier videos, but I don't want to understate it. Whenever I prepare these, and I'm using chicken litter, which chicken litter has a really low NPK ratio. It's really low, but a lot of times if you put it directly on plants and it hasn't had time to compost out or set, now mine's all set over a year, but it could burn them. But what I'm going to say is, when I put this down, I would go ahead and fertilize. Even though it's in January, they say wait until the bud starts breaking and fertilize it then. But when you're using organic fertilizer, it takes a while for the microbes to start breaking it down. So if you're going to use an organic fertilizer like chicken litter, it's best to go ahead and put those on if you're in the south, because it starts warming up towards the middle of March, the end of March, and these will start trying to break dormancy and start budding out. Now this one here, and you can see these little things here, I actually had to cut the leaves off of this. It hadn't even lost its leaves. It's pretty cold tolerant. This one was put in after the freeze, so this was just put in last year, and I took a little bit off it to go ahead and propagate some more in case something happened and it did get killed. I wasn't going to lose. These are brown turkeys right here, but they were both given to me by a friend. Now down here we have pear trees. These were neglected last year. It's not hard to tell when you have all these suckers here, this thing here, and it looks like it was cut off before, and it looks like in last year's growth. It's hard to say. I don't see a section otherwise. It looks like it's got almost 8 foot of growth. It's really hardy. These trees are a couple years younger than those trees up there, and they're looking about like 3.5 inches or 4 inches at the base. But anyway, I need to get out here and definitely get this taken care of. And this is an oriental pear, and it hasn't set a pear yet. It's the same age as the other one. It's only probably about 2.5 inches or so at the base. This one looks like it's going to have some care too. Looks like it's got fire ants piled up, but like I say, that's not hard to deal with. But you can see it's definitely not been taken care of. It's got so much of this growth that's inside. Whenever you start pruning these trees, you want to cut all this stuff out. You want it to have room to grow without rubbing, causing damage, anything that would cause health issues with your plant. A couple years ago, I had cut this down low because I wanted to kind of keep it low. You can see it's getting up high again, and I might let it just go ahead and take off, but it doesn't give me any fruit, so it might not be here long. If it is, it might end up being grafted to some other type of tree. This apple tree here, it's been neglected too over the years. I've tried to prune it back to where it's in better shape. Now last year I didn't, and you can see I've got a whole lot of sucker growth down here. I definitely need to go ahead and take off stuff on this side, which that was the plan, because what had happened was we have some strong winds when it was young, and this is like I say, it's a couple of years older than my other apple trees that I have, but it's considerably bigger because it's been vigorous. This is a Honeycrisp, and I'm in 8B, and they say in 8B it won't produce because it doesn't get enough chill hours, but that's not true. It blooms every year. If it gets pollinated, it has fruit on it, so it should be good that way. But I am going to try to propagate some more because I haven't taken care of these ones. I'm going to come in and prune this back good, see if I can't get it back in good shape. But I've been kind of pruning it to where I'm trying to get weight back on the other side of the tree so that it doesn't want to lean over anymore. And if it pulls anyway, it would want to pull it back straight. And another one of my neglected Honeycrisp. This one, I started doing a video going to repair this, and what I should have did was actually cut this off. I had put some a treatment on here to try to keep bugs and everything out, moisture out, and I've got a problem there. But this tree, you can tell it's not near as vigorous as the other tree. Now that might be just almost a good idea to cut it back and let these suckers grow. If they're above the graft, let it go ahead and come up and make a new tree. But as you can see, I have a lot of gopher mounds around. Not getting down here, not taking care of that doesn't help the root system any too. Basically, this video is about how not to do your fruit orchard, because if you're expecting to get good crop, and then you're going to have healthy trees, and if you don't take care of them, if you allow this stuff to happen, you don't properly take care of it, then what you're going to end up with are trees that you may get a few fruits off of, but definitely you're not going to have a healthy tree, and in the end you might not have a tree at all. But anyway, I hope this kind of gives you an idea of what you need to do and what you don't need to do, so that you can have fruit trees. Because don't think that you're going to plant a tree out there and not be able to or not have to do anything. Just plant it, maybe water it occasionally, and go on. There's fruit trees do take maintenance, some of them more than others, and you just need to realize that. And if you do want to put in the effort, then definitely go ahead and plant a tree. And I'm learning from my bad ways, and I think that by next year I ought to have things in a whole lot better shape. But if you have situations like mine, and you're worried, or you think that there's nothing that can be done, go ahead and take the time, correct it now, and get that tree to growing. Happy gardening.